Hey everybody, welcome into the inaugural edition of Live and Learn. Hope you're all enjoying a great Monday. It is October the 7th, and I'm thrilled to be along for the ride with all of you. Live and Learn is the new show. Live and Learn is something I think we can all use in our life. You take things, you learn from them, try to improve, and that's really the nucleus of the show. And that's pro sports, which is still the topic of discussion. It's what have you learned from this situation? What's going to be different about this one compared to past failures or successes? What can you learn from that situation that you will do the next time around, which is what the Florida Panthers will be looking to do this upcoming season when they try to repeat as Stanley Cup champions, which will be a storyline that we dive into in just a little bit. But tonight is a NHL Season Preview show. We're going to talk about a variety of topics. For the Leaf fans out there, don't worry, got you covered. We will get into them, their upcoming season. But every show is, I said this last week, but I'll repeat it today. Every show, there's going to be a formula, quick hits, which is kind of headlines from the weekend or from the past couple days, depending on how long we go without a show. We are then going to go into headlines, which will be different topics that I dive into. And then about every show, there'll be 3 feature stories that I really dive into before we do our wrap up towards the end. And the Live and Learn podcast will be Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 7 p.m. So it's exciting. I hope you guys, and I don't even like the word exciting, I never use it, but I hope you guys are looking forward to going on this journey with me. If you haven't noticed, new background, I'm going to try to change this every episode. So today, it's Rogers Place. If you're not familiar, Rogers Place is the home arena of the Edmonton Oilers. It's a beautiful arena. The city's a dump, but the arena is gorgeous. If you have a chance to go to Edmonton, go to the arena, then leave. Next flight out. But it's a stunning place. I think it's the nicest arena in the NHL, quite frankly. So I want to start with Rogers Place because we're going to talk about the Edmonton Oilers today in great detail. Before we get to the hockey, let's start with the quick hits. Over the weekend, Texans edged the Bills 23-20 on a last-second 59-yard field goal after the Bills completely throw away a game after bad coaching and decision-making by Sean McDermott. The Dallas Cowboys beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Steel City Sunday Night Football after a lengthy rain delay. Major League Baseball, the Philadelphia Phillies walk off the New York Metropolitans in Philadelphia. Series is 1-1 heading back to Citi Field. And the San Diego Padres crush the Dodgers 10-1 on the road as the series shifts back to San Diego tomorrow evening. Currently ongoing, Tigers playing the Cleveland Guardians in Cleveland. Game 2, Cleveland leading 1-0. You also have, later on tonight, you have the Kansas City Royals at the New York Yankees. Game 2, the Yankees winning that one 8-7 in Game 1. So Yankees looking to take a 2-0 series lead in the Bronx. So that's the quick hits for the weekend. And another quick hit could be is that earlier today, all NHL rosters had to be finalized, which they were. You have to be cap compliant. You have to set your roster. Multiple players were put on waivers. James Reimer, one of those players, he was then claimed by the Anaheim Ducks via the Buffalo Sabres, so he's on the run. Former Halifax Moosehead Raphael Lavoie, who is a first-round draft pick of the Edmonton Oilers a few seasons ago, was claimed by the Vegas Golden Knights. So just a few guys that are on new teams as training camp comes to an end. And technically the season has begun, because if you were not aware, because it was a weekend and you might have been doing stuff, the New Jersey Devils played the Buffalo Sabres twice in Prague of the Czech Republic. New Jersey won both of those games. That means Sheldon Keefe is 2-0 as a head coach. Sorry, Leaf fans. But he's 2-0. Lindy Ruff, in his second stint with the Sabres, is 0-2. So the season kicks off in North America tomorrow night with 3 slated games. You have St. Louis playing the Seattle Kraken in the first game of the day. You have the Boston Bruins playing the Florida Panthers with the banner being raised, although there is weather conditions in Florida, so we'll see. They had to cancel their ring ceremony last night because of the weather. And the night ends with the Chicago Blackhawks, led by newly minted captain Nick Foligno and superstar Connor Bedard, visiting the Utah Hockey Club for the first game in franchise history, with Clayton Keller, the new captain, taking the stage. Those are 3 games tomorrow night. The schedule for this week, Wednesday, we will talk about those games. That'll be part of the 3 feature stories on Wednesday's show. We will also preview the games on Wednesday night, which includes a matchup between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens in La Belle Province. We will talk about that. We'll also get into Edmonton Oilers kicking off their season, the Winnipeg Jets, some fun games on Wednesday. But headlines. Well, for me, the headlines going in is to this season, there's many. Lots of different ways you can go. But I chose this background today for a second because to me, the biggest story going into, the biggest headline, if you will, going into the NHL season is the Edmonton Oilers. They have the best player in the world. It's not a debate. It's not a discussion. Connor McDavid is special. And I see in the comments, hope you still do football. Oh, believe me, there will be football. Likely Thursday's show will be heavy with football. We'll talk Thursday night football. We'll get into the weekend. And also on Saturdays, I'm going to be posting my picks on Instagram on our IG channel. So best bets, college football and NFL, that'll be a post that I'll do that'll come out every weekend. So stay tuned for that. But thank you for the support. But the Edmonton Oilers are the biggest story to me because they have the best player and they were a goal away from winning the Stanley Cup last season. You might remember it wasn't that long ago because the season ended on June 22nd. The Edmonton Oilers lost 2-1 in South Florida. Florida Panthers captured the first Stanley Cup in franchise history. It was a great moment. Paul Maurice with an all-time great speech. Sam Reinhart with the game-winning Stanley Cup clinching goal. My main man, Matthew Tkachuk, is now a Stanley Cup champion. But to me, this season's about Edmonton because they brought a lot of the band back together. Remember Connor Brown couldn't score a goal for about 50 games and was on a line with Adam Henrique, who they acquired at the trade deadline, and Matthias Janmark, who was on a 1-year deal that was out of a PTO last season. All 3 guys are back. They're on the same line in training camp. So it looks like they're going to be playing together. Leon Draisaitl gets a massive extension. He's the highest paid player in the league for now, until somebody usurps him, likely his teammate being Connor McDavid. Stuart Skinner played 82 games last year, which is a lot for a 25-year-old. It's a lot for any goaltender at this point. He showed up. But Edmonton is trying to do what Florida did. Florida lost in the Stanley Cup final, if you remember. They lost to Vegas in a war. And they took that on the chin, and they came back, retooled, and won a Stanley Cup. And it's kind of a trend that we're seeing. You lose in the final, the next year you put it all together. And if you've seen anything from the new Amazon documentary, which I believe is called Face Off, I could be wrong about that though. I watched half an episode. It was good. About David Pastrnak. The first episode for Leafs fans is about Bill Nylander, so look out for that. But this team is motivated. This team wants it desperately. And that might be, you might say, Noah, that's a cliche. Every team wants it desperately. I don't believe that. I believe the Edmonton Oilers really do. And Connor McDavid knows he's one of the greatest players to ever play the game. Yet he will never be looked at as truly an all-time great without a Stanley Cup. So he needs to accomplish that goal to be in the upper echelon of players. So this season is about accomplishing that, about getting over that hole, if you will, finding the success, and pull a Florida, win a title. Because we'll talk about Florida, but that's also a headline for me, is can Florida repeat? Can Florida do what Vegas couldn't do? Vegas losing in the first round. To me, there is no debate whether Florida is a better team this year or last year, in its last season. Brandon Montour signed a big deal with the Seattle Kraken. He's no longer part of the team. When you lose a key defenseman like him who logs minutes, who brings so much to the table, your team is going to be wounded. Your team is not going to be the same. And not to mention they lose, a minor piece here, but Steven Lorentz, who was with the Maple Leafs now, he leaves. Nick Cousins is now a member of the Ottawa Senators. So you lose pieces that helped you win, quite frankly. And that can be tough to deal with. And I have, just pulling up Florida for you all here, they have a good team. No doubt about it. But their defense, Nate Schmidt comes over from Winnipeg. Boquist comes over for no money. When you get somebody for cheap, it doesn't always mean it's a great thing. So it's interesting, the Florida Panthers. They'll be searching for success. They keep Sam Reinhart. Kachuk is still there. Sasha Barkov, their captain, still in the fold. But can they repeat? Can they? I don't think it's a sub-zero. I think they have a better chance than Vegas did last year. But that's a topic of conversation. Third headline, it pairs with the first one, but it's an overall thought. Is a Canadian team going to win a cup? It's been a while, 1993, when the Montreal Canadiens won. We saw the Oilers get to a cup final, Montreal. It's been a minute for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But can a Canadian team win? Without question, the Edmonton Oilers have the best chance. They are, to me, the best team in the country. Most talent, set goaltending. And we'll get to this team, and we'll talk about them in greater detail, but I don't think Toronto has a 0% chance. I think Toronto's got a pretty good team. I think you look at their talent composition, you look at what they bring to the table, a new head coach, I think they have a decent chance. Winnipeg, an interesting team. An interesting team that stayed quite similar, has older stars, looking at Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele, and a bunch of guys who they hope will be productive. Velarde, Rasmus Kupari. You go around that team and you just go, yeah, it's good. Don't see a whole lot of glaring weaknesses. But do they have enough? Losing Toffoli, losing Monahan, guys they acquired via trade. Can they remain competitive? Interesting conversation to be had. Looking at Vancouver, I think Vancouver's a really good team, quite frankly. But Thatcher Demko is not going to be ready to start the season. And he has one of the most rare injuries in sports history. It's a muscle injury that doctors have not seen. He's trying to work his way back. Was injured in the first round, couldn't get back on the ice. They have Sheloffs, who took over and played valiantly and played well. Kevin Lankinen, who's played in Nashville, played in Chicago, bounced around. He comes in as insurance. And while I like Vancouver's roster, and I think JT Miller is a great player, and Quinn Hughes is awesome, and they have a lot of good pieces, I go, well, without a goaltender, you're not beating anybody. And you play in a division with Edmonton, and LA is always there, and I think Vegas will be frisky. So you're not winning a division with that goaltending. You're likely not that competitive with that goaltending. So that's a concern. Montreal, not happening this year. Montreal is hoping for success when it comes to not just Martin St. Louis winning a press conference, which he does better than anybody, by the way. And he'll win a press conference in French or in English. Doesn't matter. You ask him either one, he'll win the press conference. Big smile, he'll talk about mental health, or he'll talk about, Levi jeans. It doesn't matter. He'll be enthralled, and it'll be fantastic. But it's more than just that. It's, can we win some games here? Can we be competitive? Can we not finish last in this division? Which they very well could, by the way. So they're not going anywhere. The Ottawa Senators are like the boy who cried wolf. They always tell you they're over their hump. They always tell you they're ready to compete. But then when the going gets tough, they resort back into what they always were. A team that was never that competitive and was never that good, quite frankly. Now, I kind of like Ottawa. I'm happy that they're getting a new arena out of Canada for my sake and for the fans' sake, quite frankly. Because going to a game there is a pain in the ass. But I have no reason to have faith in this team because they've given me no reason to. I think Linus Ullmark's a really good goaltender who they acquired from the Boston Bruins. He won a Vezina Trophy, if you didn't know, in Boston. And he can be good, but he's always been good in a tandem situation with a guy named Jeremy Swayman, who we'll get to in just a little bit. He's never been asked to be the number one, the alpha dog. It's never really worked out when he's been the man. So it's interesting. I think the Senators can be competitive. They play in the toughest division in hockey, which doesn't help them. But they don't have a leg to stand on. Because as I've said, they are the boy who cried wolf. You always hear, oh, there's something out there. It's danger. I don't know what it is. But then it turns out to just be a fugazi. It turns out to be false. We'll see. The rest of the league, Calgary. I expect an ugly season for the Calgary Flames. They traded Jacob Markstrom to New Jersey. They're trying out players, hoping that something works. Kadri's their number one center. Love Naz, but not as a number one center. Jonathan Huberdeau is one of their top wingers. That's concerning. Makes a lot of money. He should play up there, but he's not that type of player anymore. Some young D who could be good potentially, but not a threatening bunch for sure. Not really that threatening. So, but can any of these teams win? Edmonton, Toronto certainly have the best chance. And I do think Canada has a good chance of breaking the drought. Last headline before we get to our 3 feature stories of the day. Steven Stamkos is no longer a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning, which would also mean Steven Stamkos is no longer the captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning. The 2-time Stanley Cup champion, one of the great goal scorers of his era, future Hall of Famer, number 1 overall pick by the Lightning, basically let him walk in free agency. He didn't get a great offer. They wanted to bring in other players. They wanted to see if they could get better. He also scored 40 goals last year, I'll add. But Steven Stamkos is now a member of the Nashville Predators. He plays in Music City. And to me, that's a big headline. It's a legend of the game, Stanley Cup champion. You think he'll play his whole career with Tampa? And he doesn't. That's surprising. You go from the Eastern Conference to the Western Conference. You go from the Atlantic Division to the Central Division. Nashville is a fascinating team for me this year. You know, they stockpiled champions. Stamkos, Marchessault, to come in with a team that's on the come up. They also add Brady Shea, who I think a lot of. Brett Pesce ended up in New Jersey. But Nashville's a team to watch all year for me. Stamkos is a player to watch all year for me. Because they're interesting. They did a lot. They took a lot of swings. And I like teams that take swings. Barry Trotz is not acting like Lou Lamoriello as a GM. And Sweet Lou is great. Hall of Famer. One of the best ever. But the way he has general managed the New York Islanders is the way that he approaches his dress code or the way he approaches his hair policy. It's old. It's archaic. It's anatic. And the success speaks for itself or lack thereof. And they're devoid of talent. You look at Nashville, they might not win this year. They could miss the playoffs. They play in a tough division. Really tough. But I like a team that'll take a swing, hoping that it works out. But Steven Stamkos in Nashville is absolutely a story to watch. And you might only like the Leafs. You might only like the Canadiens. And you watch hockey peripherally. But you know Steven Stamkos. And you know Steven Stamkos because the 2 teams I just named don't play very long into April or May. So you're forced to watch them. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Too early for a shot. I apologize. Those are headlines. Let's get to feature story number 1. It's a season preview show. I am in Canada. If I didn't have this team as one of the feature stories, I probably would be disowned by the country and my own family. So here goes. The Toronto Maple Leafs begin a new quest for glory. The core of the Maple Leafs has been together for 8 years, winning 1 playoff round in those 8 seasons. They've gone from Babcock to Keefe, now to Craig Berube, who was hired this offseason after being fired from the St. Louis Blues. After losing to the Boston Bruins in Game 7 on a Dave Pastrnak overtime winner, some thought the Leafs would do drastic things. Trade the once popular, now much maligned Mitch Marner. Possibly look at dealing Morgan Riley. Or taking a swing at a big-time goaltender like UC Saros, who ends up staying in Music City. But the Maple Leafs offseason, I can describe in one word: identity. The Maple Leafs didn't do necessarily what people wanted them to do. They didn't change their team. They didn't change the stars. But to me, they changed their identity. The Maple Leafs were a soft, easy to intimidate, easy to beat when the going gets tough moments. And I see a bigger, more intimidating team now. Looking at their team, in the offseason they lose Tyler Bertuzzi, who goes to the Chicago Blackhawks. TJ Brody also departs for the Chicago Blackhawks. Noah Gregor is now a member of the Ottawa Senators. Joel Edmondson leaves. Mark Giordano is still looking for a job, but should probably take a job with the Leafs front office because he's not going to play again because he's not good enough to play again. Ilya Samsonov is now a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. And Martin Jones remains unsigned for some reason because I thought he played pretty well for the Maple Leafs last season. I'm not saying the Leafs should have brought him back, but if I was a team in the NHL, I would have signed him, but that's just me. Looking at the pieces that the Maple Leafs lost, if you're a Leafs fan, I don't think you're that upset that you lost any of those players. Now, when you lose players, you can go, well, they suck, we need better players, but you also say, well, that's a body that we had in our team. And that did serve a purpose. But I don't think Tyler Bertuzzi would be the biggest loss of this group. But of the players the Maple Leafs lost, they are all very easy to replace. And in my opinion, the Leafs did a good job of replacing these said players. They added Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Fresh off winning a Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers, OEL used to be a finesse player. Used to be, I don't want to take any hits. I want to take the puck off the ice. Offensive defenseman. Let's see what magic I can make on my own. After years of failing in that role, being bought out, salary cut in half, bouncing around, hoping to land a job, playing for the Florida Panthers, OEL was a fourth, fifth defenseman. He checked hard and played well, quite frankly. He did the job. And I thought he was very good for the Florida Panthers in the playoffs. Max Pacioretty, who was on a PTO and then signed a one-year, $875,000 deal today, is now a member of the Maple Leafs. Patches scored 4 goals in 41 games last year for the Washington Capitals, which is not impressive, but he has pedigree. He's mid-30s. This is likely his last crack. The Maple Leafs like to do this, whether it is Jason Spezza or Patrick Marleau. They like to scoop up a veteran who was a leader in other spots and see if he can work. Max Pacioretty is a cheap option that you can get rid of if it doesn't go well, and there's no risk. I think he could be good. He could absolutely be terrible as well. But Pacioretty brings you potential success, potential dynamite that you didn't have before. Chris Tanev, their biggest addition. Chris Tanev is a workhorse. Chris Tanev is block a shot with your face kind of guy. He plays the same way every night. No game is more important than another. And he comes over after playing in Vancouver, playing in Calgary, going to Dallas, going to the Western Conference Finals with them and playing really good hockey, by the way. Really good hockey for the Stars. He now comes to Toronto, gets to play in Ontario, and he's going to be asked to play on a defense pairing with Morgan Rielly. And Morgan Rielly has been maligned by me, quite frankly, because Morgan Rielly is not a number one defenseman, but he's asked to be one, which again is not entirely his fault. That's management not kind of knowing what he is. But when you're paid well and you play on the biggest market in hockey and you stink, people are going to talk about you. The most success Morgan Rielly ever had was playing with a guy named Ron Hainsey. Ron Hainsey, who Leaf fans grew to hate. Go look up the season Morgan Rielly played with Ron Hainsey. It was by far his best year. He was nominated for the Norris Trophy. And this is what Chris Tanev is. He's a similar player. Move the puck, simple, block shots, play good defensively, and let my defense partner shine on the offensive side of the puck. And I think Rielly and Tanev are going to be a great pair for the Maple Leafs. It might take some time, growing pains early on, but these two guys I think will mesh. I think they'll play well together. I expect them to play 65 out of the 82 games together this season. Probably more, but that's my over-under. I think they're going to play a ton together. It's going to work. And I think it'll be a group that the Leafs won't want to break up. They'll have to trade for pieces if it doesn't work, bring in other names. But that'll be a pairing they'll want to stick with the entire season. And the Leafs also add Anthony Stolarz from Florida, was the backup to Sergei Bobrovsky, Stanley Cup champion. We should know about Stolarz. He's 6'5", 6'6". He's a mountain of a man. And he's a presence in the net. He's never been a number one in the NHL. But to me, going into this season, it's very much a tandem. It's very much whoever can get hot will get the most starts. That's the way it should be. Anyway, they play a lot of back-to-backs in their first 20 games. So Stolarz will get starts. Stolarz will get looks. And we'll see what he can do with that opportunity. So those are the additions. Nothing crazy. And also head coach Craig Berube. But it's a new identity. This team is a lot bigger. This team is a lot heavier. And I think they bring more of a presence than they did in previous years. They're not as nimble, so to speak. But if you want to mess around with the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think they can punch it back. Not just with fighting, but with physical game and not getting pushed off the puck. Now, going through subtractions, additions, there's still a couple elephants in the room. It starts with John Tavares. John Tavares was the captain of the Maple Leafs for 6 seasons. Great player, brought in, pajamas, the whole the whole thing. And after last season, it seemed evident to me that he wasn't going to be the captain anymore. He was never really the best player when he played on the Maple Leafs, ever during his tenure. But also, he was scoring a lot of he scored over 40 goals his first year. He was playing second line center. He played with Mitch Marner. And you went, okay, this guy can play. This guy has it. But it's just fallen off. The game gets faster. He gets slower. I think in a perfect world, the Maple Leafs wouldn't have him playing center, but their center depth is the weakest part of their team, and he is still playing center. So, him being on the team, not being the captain anymore, that's weird to me. It's awkward. We haven't seen, the Sharks did this way back when, replacing Marlowe with Joe Thornton, then replacing Joe Thornton with little Joe Pavelski. They never ended up winning. Is there a direct correlation? I don't know, but I'll make it now. Tavares has 1 year left. He's still talking like he'd like to stick around, which I find hard to believe. But again, it's just a weird scenario. It's weird. I'd be stunned if he gets a contract extension during the season, but anything can happen. Okay. Then there's Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner has a year left on his contract. He's been one of the most productive wingers in the NHL over the last number of years. He's labeled a 100-point player, yet he's only gotten 99 over the course of his career, so not 100 points, but very good. Power play, penalty kill, special, whatever you want. Plays in all big positions. Him and Austin Matthews are a dynamic duo, and he's a great player. Now, a playoff performer, I cannot label him a playoff performer, but I can't label Austin Matthews a playoff performer either. Morgan Rielly, hit or miss. I mean, you look at their team full of stars, their stars have not been good playoff players. Period. But people in Toronto, people just Leaf fans, really have a hate on for this guy. They don't want him on the team anymore. Trade him for something. Make a deal. I concocted deals to the point for Mitch Marner. But clearly they didn't want to trade him, or he didn't want to waive his no movement clause, which is his right. So, again, I don't want to mansplain this, but if you're unfamiliar, in the league, they hand out contracts. You might get a contract that has a no move in it. If you have a no move contract, that means they cannot trade you without you signing off on it. If they say, yeah, we got a deal, we're trading you to Columbus tomorrow, and you go, actually, no, I'm not going to Columbus, they can't complete the deal, which is the team signing away its rights. So I don't feel bad for the Maple Leafs if they did want to trade him, or any team that wants to trade a guy with a no move, because you could have just played hardball and not given it to him, but you did. So, too bad. So sad. Here's the thing with Marner for me. I don't think he's going anywhere during the season, and I don't think he's going anywhere after the season. I think Mitch Marner will sign a contract extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs before the season is over. There's the first spicy hot take for you here on Live and Learn. Here's why I say that, and it's live and learned themed here. Is Nylander leaving the team? Was Matthews leaving the team? Was there ever really chat about it? Not really. They both went into their final season without a contract. They played half of it, And eventually they got one. Why would the Mitch Marner case be any different? He's as important as any of them. I think most people would argue that Mitch Marner is a better player than Bill Nylander. So why sign Bill if you're not going to sign Mitch, who's a better player? Interesting. You keep them all. And what I think the Maple Leafs philosophy is, and it could be proven right, it's been proven wrong to this point. We have such a high collection of talent. Our team is loaded with high-end guys. We can't give them away. Why trade Mitch Marner? We'll figure it out. We will win with him. Again, could be right, could be wrong. But that's how I see this going. Because trading away Mitch is a solution. But if you don't have players coming back that are good or add up to that value, then you're doing yourself a disservice. I would have explored a trade last offseason. But again, I don't know this to be for a fact. But I don't know if he would have waived. So it's irrelevant what I would have done. Could play out this season and let him walk for nothing. Because in the Stanley Cup window, you're not going to trade one of your team's best players. Losing a player like that for nothing? Hard to stomach. Hard to accept. I think he's going to stay, sign an extension, $11.5, $12 million range with the Maple Leafs. So that's another awkward piece of business for the Maple Leafs. Going into this season, I think the Maple Leafs have a pretty good team. And I've made this point before, but I think teams around them have gotten worse. Florida off the top won a Stanley Cup. Every time you win a cup, you get worse. It's the system, the salary cap, and it burns you. Happens to every team. Florida is not as good as they were this time last year. Boston, you could argue, is better than they were last year, and somehow Boston finished with a better record than Toronto. Somehow Boston finished with a great record, which is still puzzling to me after what the talent composition that they have on their team compared to teams like Toronto, Florida, Tampa Bay. Tampa, Stamkos leaves, they bring in Jake Gensel. Is it going to work? Is it going to be a fit? I'm not sold on it yet. Gensel, Stamkos, two very different players, bring two very different things to the table. Stamkos can play center. Gensel cannot. Is Gensel just a Crosby sidekick? I think he's much better than the Kunitzes or the Pascal Dupuis of the world, but people will think, people will ponder. So I look at the Leafs, up the middle. Austin Matthews, best goal scorer in the world, one of the best players in the world. John Tavares, being a number 2 center is not ideal because he's not a number 2 center anymore. But as of now, he's going to be asked to be that. They didn't really address the position in the offseason, and they're going to hope that other guys can step up. Third line center is a bit of a mystery, quite frankly. William Nylander started camp playing center for some reason. That didn't last long. Now he's on the wing. I'll start by saying this. He's not a centerman. He's just not a centerman. I don't know why they thought he was, but he's not. Practice today was Matthews, Tavares, Pontus Holmberg playing third line center. Woof. And David Kampf. Third line center is the hole because you have Holmberg playing with Pacioretty and Nick Robertson at practice. Bobby McMahon currently injured for the Maple Leafs. He might not be ready for opening night. He'll be in there when available, I would think, somewhere on that third line. Probably Pacioretty's spot. But third line center will be an issue because I think they have one of the weaker third line centers in hockey. It's just not a strength. I like to have a great third line center, like an Adam Lowry in Winnipeg. That's just such a luxury to have. But then again, I look the rest of it, Nyes playing with Matthews and Marner. That's a really good line. I think Nyes can be a better Michael Bunting, just getting pucks, making things happen. Second line, Domi, Tavares, Nylander. I'm one of the few, but I believe Max Domi is a better center than he is a winger. I think he moves his feet more. He's more engaged. I like that version of Max Domi more than I like him playing the wing. He's faster than Tavares. If you want Tavares to take a face-off every now and then in the defensive zone on with Max Domi, I'm okay with that. But I think that's not a great decision. Domi would be playing center for me in that situation. Third lines, I just said Pacioretty, Holmberg, and Nick Robertson. Nick Robertson, who had a great preseason with 5 goals, has made the team, and deservedly so. And then fourth line, Steven Lorentz, who was on a PTO and got a deal. He's with Camp and Ryan Reeves as of now. So a heavy, thick fourth line for Craig Berube. Then on the defense, you have Morgan Rielly and Chris Tanev, Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Jake McCabe, and Simone Benoit and Connor Timmins, who has made the opening night roster over Timothy Liljegren, which is interesting. Liljegren's never been my favorite player. I didn't think he'd be Craig Berube's favorite player. He's a tweener. A tweener is somebody that you don't really know what. They're not skilled. They're not physical. They're not that good a skater. So you go, what do you do here? And Liljegren really brings nothing of substance to the table. So he's on the outside looking in alongside Philip Myers, who as of now has made the Leafs team as a healthy scratch, as an extra defenseman. The New Brunswick native. Big thing, I thought he played well in the preseason games that I watched. He's a big man. I think Berube likes that. Hakanpää is a defenseman they brought in from Dallas. He's not available. So I think they look at Phil Myers and go, if we need a bigger defense some night, he can be our Hakanpää. He can be a big guy that can get in people's way. And there's even video of Ryan Reeves teaching him how to fight today. So interesting stuff there. And then they have Joe Woll and Stolarz between the pipes. Joe Woll, the starter for now, but he's also been one of the more fragile professional athletes in some time. Can't stay healthy, never available. So we'll see what happens with Joe Woll. I think Stolarz will get starts this year. I think Matt Murray will get starts this year. And it wouldn't stun me if Thomas Hildeby gets starts this year for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think they'll play all 4. I think Woll will get injured throughout the year because he always does. And the Leafs will have a multitude of goaltenders between the pipes. All that to say, I like the Leafs team. I like Chief Craig Berube as a head coach. He's a Stanley Cup champion. He won a team with a lot less talent in St. Louis. So to look at it that way, this should be an easier project, if you will, for him. I think Matthew Nyes is going to have a really good season playing with Marner and Matthews. 20, 25 goals, maybe 55 points on the season. I think it's playing with those two guys. If you don't have those numbers, you suck, quite frankly, because Michael Bunting basically had those numbers. I like their defense a lot more than I have in previous years. I don't trust their goaltending, but what I will say is I think their defense can make up for mediocre goaltending. And ultimately, they're not losing in the playoffs because of defense, even though their defense has been lacking. They're not losing because of their depth pieces. They're losing because they can't score. Because in the big moment, the other team can find a goal when they can't. And I like their team. I think they'll be good in the regular season because they always are. But it's going to be up to 34, 88, and 16 come April to nut up or shut up when it comes to the playoffs. Period. It can be that simple. Because there's some good teams in the Atlantic. There are. I think Florida will be a solid team. I think Boston will be a solid team again, somehow. I think Buffalo will compete-ish. Detroit, Montreal, they're all towards the bottom. Perhaps Ottawa makes a surge, not to threaten the Leafs by any matter, but something the Maple Leafs haven't done. They made the playoffs 8 straight years. Great accomplishment, by the way. It's hard to do. Look at Buffalo. They haven't made it in 14. The Maple Leafs have never won their division. You always hear complaints from Leafs fans. Oh, the format sucks. We had to play Boston again. Ooh. We have all these difficult teams in the first round. Shut up. How about you win your division in the regular season so you don't have to play a team from the Atlantic? So you could play maybe Washington, who made the playoffs last year, who are an abomination, that team. You don't have to play great teams right away. If you show up, play a regular season, give an honest day's work, and win the division. That's my advice to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Do what you haven't done before, and I'll even go on the record and say right now I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to win the Atlantic Division. They have faults. They'll have growing pains. But I believe they'll win the Atlantic for the first time in a long time. And they'll battle with the Bostons and with these other teams. But I think Toronto wins the Atlantic Division. They set themselves up for the most success that they can have come April. But I think this team will have a new feel to it under Craig Berube. But I have Toronto winning the Atlantic. And we'll get to the rest of the list in a minute because my next story is about the Boston Bruins, and it's about Jeremy Swayman. Yesterday, about noon, a little earlier, the Boston Bruins and restricted free agent goaltender Jeremy Swayman agreed to an 8-year, $8.66 million a year contract. Basically $66 million. This was after Cam Neely said on Tuesday, there's about 64 million reasons why if I was Jeremy, I'd be playing right now. It was contentious. It got real. His agent came out, released a statement. But ultimately, the two sides, just before the season starts, agree to a deal. I doubt Jeremy Swayman will be in the opening night roster tomorrow. But Jeremy Swayman is a Boston Bruin nonetheless. The holdout ends. He misses all of training camp. And they have their goaltender of the future. This negotiation was different than a lot of the other negotiations. Pasternak was quiet. Marchand, Bergeron, Chara. These negotiations were quiet. It was really the Bruin way. You sign Charlie McAvoy, you sign a team-friendly deal, you do it quietly, you move on with your business. And Swayman didn't do that. He went on podcasts, talked about his value, said he learned a lot going through arbitration last year, and wasn't going to accept something that he didn't think was fair, and all power to him. And he waited, and ultimately, he got a deal that was really good for him. And as it sits right now, adequate for the Boston Bruins. If you look at it, Jeremy Swayman has played in 120 NHL games. He's never started 40 games in a season. He's always been in a tandem with guys like Linus Ullmark, who won a Vezina, by the way, and played behind a really good team. Now, he doesn't deserve criticism for playing with really good players, but I don't think Jeremy Swayman has proved that he's number one goaltender. I think he's really good. I would have signed him long-term if I was Boston. I think it's a win you get him on 8 years because you look at guys like Austin Matthews was the one renegade to sign a 5-year deal multiple times, not taking the max 8 so that you can sign 5 and then double up and get more money. Now that's confidence, and that's also just being smarter than most of these other players. If I'm a player, I'm not signing an 8-year deal anywhere because I don't want to be stuck somewhere. The money's great, but you'll get the money elsewhere if you're that good of a player. But for Jeremy Swayman, the smart move was to take 8 years because you're a goalie. You never know if you're going to break down. And also, you're looking around going, I've only played these number of games. I'm 25. I'm going to take advantage of the system and get a bunch of money that I probably don't deserve, but I'm going to take it. To me, Swayman's a really good goalie. Right on the cusp of being elite. I think he could be a top 5 goalie in the sport this year. I really do. Now, whether that happens or not, that remains to be seen. But he's interesting because he doesn't go the Bruins' way, and yet they keep him because they were screwed. They had no choice. They got rid of Ullmark. They had to trade Ullmark to Ottawa. So they looked around and went, what are we going to do? We don't have somebody that can play. We don't have a guy that can make a difference, that can make a big save for this team. And ultimately, they give him the money. And Boston, as I said, has been remaining consistent and remaining competitive despite the fact that they don't have the talent of the Maple Leafs or the Panthers or Tampa Bay. Bergeron retired. Chara retired. Charlie Coyle was a number 1 center. Brad Marchand at an advanced age was playing fantastic. Boston this summer loses Jake DeBrusk to the Vancouver Canucks. Let's JVR go. Danton Heinen leaves. Allmark gets traded to Ottawa. Kevin Shattenkirk remains a free agent. But they add Elias Lindholm, who was great in Calgary, was not so great in Vancouver. They're hoping he can find a spark in Boston. They add Nikita Zadorov, who was a big fish in free agency. Highly sought after. Big mammoth of a man to come in and put on that defense with McAvoy, with Hampus Lindholm, with Carlo, with Mason Lohrei, with Andrew Peeke. And Korpisalo comes in the Allmark trade to be the number 2 goaltender. And I think when he's not asked to be the number 1, he can be a solid backup. I like Boston. I do. I love Pasternak. Geeky can play. Zaka up and down. Trent Frederick has his services. Matthew Poitras returning from shoulder surgery. We'll see what the kid can do. Injured at the World Juniors. John Beecher, I think, blossoming third, fourth line center who could play with some heaviness. Charlie Coyle, Elias Lindholm. Boston's got one of the better defense scorers in the league. Period. McAvoy's the number 1. You have Hampus Lindholm, who had a down season, but he can drive play. Really good puck mover. Carlo, who knows his role as a perfect partner. He's the new addition of, say, a Chris Tanev, just a younger version of it. Zadorov, Mason Lohrei, who I think is a ton of promise with the Boston Bruins. And Andrew Peeke, who's just a solid 6th defenseman who doesn't cost you a whole lot of money, who will play solid minutes. Boston's strength is their defense and their goaltending. That's how they're going to win. I still worry about their overall talent composition and Charlie Coyle playing that high in the lineup and asking Pasternak and Brad Marchand to do so much. But they will be good again. I believe that. They will be competitive in this division. Jeremy Swayman will start the season late, and you hope training, not being there for training, it doesn't ruin him. But despite the fact that he got the money, I think he'll be motivated. Because teams are calling out. You have people on podcasts, people in the media talking about him. So if you're sitting out for that amount of money, what's going on here? He's good. Has to prove it consistently, but he's a really good goaltender. So Boston, I think, has improved from last season, just like Toronto, you could argue, has improved from last season. And Boston beat Toronto. But Boston's a heavy story for me, just in looking at them and going, this team keeps doing it. They remain competitive, despite the fact that they lose 2 legends. You lose Chara, and you lose Bergeron. You lose Hockey Hall of Famers, and you don't go into a rebuild. They've done it. Don Sweeney keeps this team in the mix. Made the second round of the playoffs last year. Do they have enough talent up front? They'll have to address that if they really want to make a deep push at winning a cup, which Brad Marchand obviously will believe that they can. But it's fascinating. Boston's always in that mix. They're always competitive. They're always a factor. They never seem to go away. And I respect that. My third feature story are the rookies this year in the National Hockey League. You might go, okay, well, there's other teams to talk about. Let's get to the Western Conference. We'll get to that in the wrap-up. I want to chat about the rookies because I am thrilled to watch the Calder Trophy race this season. Here's just a few rookies this year to name a few that'll be involved. Starts with Macklin Celebrini, who was drafted first overall by the San Jose Sharks. He was injured in the preseason, but he went first overall for a reason. Was great in college. He's got a ton of talent. Only turns 19 on June 13th. And according to CBS Sports, Macklin Celebrini will play Thursday on opening night against St. Louis, Max Miller of NHL.com reports. Was injured in Utah, but was on San Jose's top line and work on the first power play unit during his rookie campaign. So he'll be okay. But Macklin Celebrini is a player to watch. First overall, played at BU last year, 64 points in 38 games. Dynamic player, was good at the World Junior Hockey Championships. Curious to see how he does. We then go to his teammate, Will Smith, another NCAA player. Now, Will Smith was not a pick in this year's draft. He's 19, year older than Macklin. But Will Smith, American, can flat out play. Again, this guy played at Boston College, 71 points in 41 games, 46 assists. I like him a lot. I think the kid can play. He can do a lot right. Great passer, great vision. San Jose is building a prospect pool. San Jose is building players of the future. They do not have a great team right now. There's no debating that. But they have guys that will be there for the future. Remember Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini in San Jose. Let's then go to Cutter Gauthier. You go, Cutter Gauthier, that name sounds familiar. Yeah, played for the Americans at the World Junior Hockey Championships multiple times. Played for Boston College with Will Smith. But he also was drafted by the Philadelphia Flyers and said, yeah, I'm kind of sick of this. I don't really want to, I don't want to sign with the Flyers. It's not for me. Not a great mesh here. So he got traded from the Flyers. Jamie Drysdale goes the other way. He's now a member of the Anaheim Ducks. He got into one game last season. He had an assist in his first career NHL game. He will be a regular for the Anaheim Ducks. Young team with fellow American Trevor Zegras, fellow American John Gibson. So Cutter Gauthier, another guy who I think will be in the Calder Trophy mix. We'll see what he can do. Yaroslav Askarov. Yaroslav Askarov, a goaltender, was a draft pick of the Nashville Predators. He is a Russian goaltender, played for Russia at the World Juniors multiple times, played in the American League for Milwaukee for a number of years. But he demanded a trade this summer. Initially, Barry Trotz said no, he's going to come into camp, compete for the job. But then, they end up trading him to San Jose. I thought, okay, perfect place to go to. Bad team, but you're going to get a place to start games, place to prove that you're an NHLer. But he got cut in training camp. I think he'll be called back up eventually. But he's now with the San Jose Barracuda. He's in his early 20s. Sharks with Mackenzie Blackwood and Vitek Vanacek. Two experienced guys, two guys that are NHLers, to be fair. But he'll be up. He'll get some games down in the minors. He'll be called up at some point. Lane Hutson. There might not be many reasons to watch the Montreal Canadiens because they're not that great of a team. But Lane Hutson looks like a blossoming star. He made the team as a 20-year-old defenseman, played 2 years at Boston University, great puck mover, filthy hands, so slick, and he now joins Montreal, got in 2 games with them last year, had 2 points, makes some ridiculous passes. Lane Hudson is box office. He's a reason to go to the rink, a reason to watch the game, and I'm curious to see how he looks. To me, playing defense is harder than playing up front. I want to see him, and if he even has a solid season, I think he should get more Calder's consideration than forwards, because it's not all about points, although it is for winning the Norris Trophy and other ones, but to me, it's more about your overall play. If Lane Hudson can play really well for the Montreal Canadiens, where again they go into a season with low expectations, I like him. I think he is Wednesday night, Montreal, Toronto. Look out for Lane Hudson. He will be in the lineup as of now. He's on a defense pairing with David Savard. But Justin Barron, you look at the Montreal defense, Lane Hudson, Justin Barron, Caden Gooley, young guys that they hope can be a part of their future long term, alongside guys like Alex Newhook and Slafkovsky. Logan Stankoven, remember him with Dallas? He actually hasn't played enough games to be out of rookie eligibility. It's going to be his rookie season. He was pretty good in the playoffs. He's a dynamic player. Logan Stankoven could be the sneaky pick because he's 21. He's older than this bunch. He plays on a good team with Dallas. Only played 24 regular season games last year. Had 14 points in those regular season games. Had 8 points in the postseason. He's great. Dallas could have a kid in Maverick Bourque who led the entire AHL last year in scoring. He's made Dallas out of camp as well. Didn't last year. He got into 1 game. He's made the team. So Maverick Bourque, player to watch, 22 years old, has grinded it out, played for the Shawinigan Cataracts, won a Memorial Cup. Kid's just a winner. And finally, the final rookie that I'm most excited about, Matvei Michkov, a draft pick of the Philadelphia Flyers. Matvei Michkov is a Russian player who, to me, should have went second overall behind Connor Bedard. But people didn't want to take him because, he's Russian. He's going to stay over there forever. He doesn't do these things well enough in his game. Whatever. Couldn't play at the World Juniors because Russia's not allowed to play anymore because of the war. Matvei Michkov set a record for points by an 18-year-old in the top K League. Had 41 points in 47 games in Sochi as an 18-year-old. With 45 penalty minutes, by the way. The kid's got a little bite, which I like. He gets drafted. He spends 1 year playing in Russia. Now he's over. Such a long period of time. So long. He, to me, has a great shot. He has all the tools. The one thing you might look at and go, is, okay, he's got John Tortorella as a coach. And he might not play him that much. He might bench him. He might scratch him like he's done to some other guys. But he's going to play. Because the Flyers don't have that much talent. They have Konechny, who I love. And they signed him to an extension. Good on them. Could have got a lot for him, but decided to keep him. I'm fine with that. Michkov is their future. He is. To me, he has the potential to be the best player on that team. Period. Leo Carlsson went second behind Bedard. Solid rookie campaign, but nothing crazy. Adam Fantilli was good, but again, he kind of gets sucked into the vortex in Columbus. He had 27 points in 49 games. It's actually pretty solid. You just can't stay healthy, and he was a minus 21. We'll see. Will Smith, we talked about, didn't play. He's a rookie this year. He'll be, kind of compared to Michkov. We'll see. David Reinbacher from Montreal. He just had knee surgery. He's out 5 to 6 months. The Austrian defenseman, tough break for him. I thought he'd be good. I liked the pick at the time. We'll see there. Dmitry Simashev for the then Arizona Coyotes, now the Utah Hockey Club, or the Utah Fighting Mormons. He's also from Russia, if you could believe it, this guy. And as of now, this year he's playing for Lokomotiv in the KHL. So yeah, sure, let's take him. And then it was Michkov. He should have went second overall, second best player in the draft. These teams that didn't take him, you only miss him for a year when your team was crap, and now you don't get him. That's got to sting, let me tell you. That's got to sting. I thought we might see Ryan Leonard on this list, who I like. Washington Capitals draft pick, went 8th overall in the Michkov draft. He stayed at Boston College. I don't think he loved the scenario with Washington, so he stays another year. Fine with that. So good for him. But I'm stoked about these rookies. A lot of talent. I think it's a race for the Calder Trophy to see who will win it. Going on FanDuel Sportsbook right now, looking up odds for the Calder Trophy. So the awards: Calder Memorial, Matvei Michkov plus 250. He's the favorite to win it. Macklin Celebrini at plus 450. Logan Stankoven plus 550. Cutter Gauthier plus 550. Lane Hudson's. All the names that we discussed. Rucker McGroarty, who is played at Michigan State, now a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins via Winnipeg. Askarov, Jonathan Lecker-Mackey, who could play for Vancouver, unlikely though. So, yeah, Josh Doan with the Utah Hockey Club, Shane Doan's son. Matt Rempe is low on this list. So there's some names, certainly. But I think it's a great crop of young talent. There's teams that aren't very good. Anaheim, San Jose, Philly, Montreal, who have really good potential talent that could be the future of their organization. And it's a reason to give the team a watch. Reason to turn on a Philly game. Reason Thursday night to go St. Louis, San Jose. I'd normally not watch this. Maybe I'll watch a period. Because I want to see how Celebrini and how Will Smith look in their NHL debuts. So just something to consider, something to ponder as we move forward. And it's one of my favorite things to do is follow young stars as they come into the league. Now, before we wrap up the show today, we got a couple things, and let's get to wrap up. Utah. Arizona no more. Utah, bienvenue. I'm happy for Utah. I'm happy that they have an NHL rink, that it's not a joke playing at a university anymore. They were aggressive. They got Sergachev. They went out and got players. And I don't think they're a playoff team yet, but their owner clearly has passion. He wants them to be competitive. They're going to pick a new team name. Sounds like it's going to be the Yetis. It's based off fan voting. I still think they should have went as the Utah Fighting Mormons. That's just me. You want to own the area. You want to own who you are as a people. I think that would have been a fine name. Utah Hockey Club, also good. Better than anything they'll come up with, probably. But Utah, now a part of the Central Division, and it's an interesting division for sure, with a lot of new teams, fresh faces, teams hoping to prove something. Another key wrap-up story, the New Jersey Devils. They're already 2-0 in the season. But here's the thing. Sheldon Keefe is the new head coach. Used to coach the Maple Leafs, if you don't know. He's now their head coach. He's experienced. He's a really good regular season coach. They trade for Jacob Markstrom from the Calgary Flames, so they finally get a goaltender who's competent. They signed Brett Pesce, comes over from the Carolina Hurricanes. To me, New Jersey's a really good team, And they missed the playoffs somehow last year because of goaltending. If they would have got adequate goaltending, they make the playoffs. To me, they're a force to be reckoned with this year. The Rangers still exist, and the Rangers are a very good team. The Rangers, who won the President's Trophy, are returning 19 players from that team, and 13 of them are on the last year of their contract, so it truly is last kick at the can for that core of guys. So New Jersey has a lot of options. New Jersey has a lot of pressure on them, certainly. But Dougie Hamilton is healthy. The Hughes brothers are healthy for now. Jack Hughes, when healthy when playing, is as dynamic as anybody. Markstrom, Pesce, Keefe, Timo Meier. They're a good club. They really are. So New Jersey is a team to watch for me. And then there's veteran teams like Tampa, like Dallas, who've had success for a long time, been playoff teams for a long time. Can they sustain it? Can they keep it going? Can they stay in that mix? On Wednesday, we talk about a number of different things. It won't just be a hockey show on Wednesday. We'll be talking some football. We're going to talk baseball. We're going to get into my predictions for the NHL season. I'll be going through each division, making those picks, laying out why. Also go into greater detail on other Canadian teams, including the Winnipeg Jets, including the Montreal Canadiens, who I didn't get as much time to talk about today. So that's forthcoming on Wednesday's show. And again, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m., live on Facebook, live on YouTube, clips coming on Instagram after the fact. So stay tuned for all of that. I'm stoked that Live and Learn has started. Thank you all for everybody who came out and supported tonight. Hope you, if you can't watch us live, watch us later. Download the podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. But Live and Learn is the new way. We got baseball tonight. The Detroit Tigers just beat the Cleveland Guardians, 3-run shot in the ninth inning. We got Monday Night Football, Saints, Chiefs in a fun game. And I'm going to find that line for you real quick. The Saints are giving 5.5 or a 5.5 point dog. I'd take the Saints plus the points tonight if I was gambling. I'm not sure they win. I think they cover. Chiefs are wounded. They're playing bad football. We see this weekend, the NFL was complete crazy. Just lunacy happening. But as I said, This show, I'm going to talk about key teams, popular teams, certainly. But if you want me to talk about something, let me know in the comments or send me a DM, a text, and I will talk about it. Because I want to serve the audience. That's what this is about more than anything. You want me to get into something, I will. Want me to talk UFC, want me to talk college football, NFL, certain things. You want to talk gambling about certain sports, whatever it might be, I will do because it's about you. It's not about me. It's about providing the best podcast that I can do. And that's what I aim to do here on Live and Learn. But I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode. We'll be back on Wednesday at 7 o'clock, same time. Enjoy the rest of your night. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. I'm Noah Warren, and this is Live and Learn.